All right, welcome back to the Rick Solem Show here on WIZM 92.3 FM, 106.7 FM if you're north of Vaughan, Alaska. Eric Carson, Dr. Eric Carson is on with me now. He has been, as I played the song, he has been wandering the Driftless on a horse with no name for the past 18 years. And he's been doing that for UW-Madison, I would imagine, or maybe the state of Wisconsin. He's a geologist at UW-Madison, and he's been mapping the Driftless. He has what's called a Badgers Talk on Thursday at the Sparta Library at 5:30 p.m. And I always like to steal these and kind of preview them a little bit and actually steal all the content of your Badger Talk. This is, Eric, think of this as like practice for your Thursday Badger Talk, though I'm sure you've done a whole bunch of these already. But I appreciate you joining me. Thanks, man.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Okay, so the joke is you've been wandering the Driftless for 18 years. You've been mapping the Driftless. That sounds crazy. 18 years of work. What does that mean?
Yeah, sure. So I work for the Wisconsin Geological and Natural History Survey. So we are the state's geological survey, but we're also a part of UW-Madison. And one of the primary tasks that we do as a geological survey is create geologic maps. And we typically do this on a county by county basis. And they're used for a variety of land use, land management purposes. And historically, our geological survey has only had glacial geologists mapping the surface geology, the sediment at the Earth's surface. And, probably about 3/4 of the state is covered by glacial sediment, was covered by glaciers. But that means that in the 150 plus year history of the Geological Survey, they've never had anyone equipped to work in the Driftless area. And so back in 2008, I guess it was, they hired me and basically turned me loose. Said, "This is your playground for as long as it takes you to get done with it."
And you've really been milking it because you've taken 18 years to do it. Wow, way to go.
I've been working hard for 18 years.
Working hard. Oh, that's what we're calling it. Okay, so the first thing, and maybe people know this, maybe people, it's really cool to call your thing a Driftless. If you have a business, call it the Driftless, whatever the business is. And it's just kind of a savvy thing to say, I live in the Driftless. But can you tell me what the Driftless is? And I'll just say I pulled up a county map of Wisconsin. So like I can see, like, I don't know. I actually don't know how big the Driftless is. Does it cut through from like La Crosse down to Madison? Because I'm just thinking of where the bluffs are and trying to get, like
Sure.
Devil's Lake. Is that part of the Driftless? And is La Crosse and Devil's Lake the same Driftless area, so to speak?
Yeah. So the concept of the Driftless area is that over the past 2.5 million years or so, there have been numerous cycles of glaciers expanding and contracting. And I'm talking glaciers that cover massive parts of continents. So many times over, ice sheets, which is what we call these huge glaciers, ice sheets have grown that have covered basically all of Canada and come down into the northern United States. And through all of these cycles of glaciers that have happened over the past 2.5 million years, this area, the Driftless area, was never covered by any one of them. And so it's this landscape that's relatively ancient compared to everything else around us. And a lot of these glaciers went down as far as Cincinnati, Ohio, St. Louis, Missouri. So they went a tremendous distance farther south from here, but for a variety of reasons, they just never covered this area. So the Driftless area itself is an area that is almost spot on about 10,000 square miles in area. Trying to think if that's the right number, or I'll have to double check that to make sure I'm not
When the
throwing
glaciers
insane numbers around.
When the glaciers melted, are you saying when they melted, they flatten the land, right? Like as they melt,
they fill in the land with glacial sediment, but they never ever came in on the Driftless area.
Why'd they miss us?
A couple times it was just because of climate. So that these glaciers in this part of the world are flowing south. So the farther south they flow, the warmer it gets, and eventually they get to a point where they're far enough south that the ice is melting as fast as it's being brought in. Part of it's because some of the ice got funneled really efficiently down the Green Bay lowland and down the Lake Michigan lowland, so it was able to just shoot right by and go all the way down through Illinois and Indiana. And then part of it is the huge deep trough that is Lake Superior. So ice would get into the Lake Superior Basin, and of course Lake Superior is by far the deepest of the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
And ice doesn't flow downhill the way water does. Ice flows based on the pressure of ice pushing behind it. So it can flow uphill. Ice can flow out of the Lake Superior lowland, but it couldn't make it much farther south. And so Lake Superior really protected this area from getting covered by ice.
All right. And so you said in 2008, UW-Madison kind of set you loose. Did you
Yep.
know what you were getting into?
Yeah, I did. I did both of my graduate degrees here at UW-Madison, my master's and my PhD. And while I didn't work in the Driftless area, one of my graduate advisors spent his entire career working in it. And so I was really familiar with the area, knew what the area was. And when I had the chance to be hired by the State Geological Survey, I really jumped on it for the opportunity to come back and work in this unique landscape.
And when I say did you know what you were getting into? Did you know in 2026 you would be like, well, and are you wrapping up your work? I feel like maybe you're wrapping it up and you're like, did you know in 2026 you would be like wrapping it up? Did you know it
You know,
would take
we,
so
we
long?
we knew it would take a long time, and in fact, it's taken a little bit less than we thought because the amount of work we do is based on the federal grants that we get, and that's increased over the years. So yeah, I'm 18 years deep in it. It's probably going to be another 2 years to finish it. So currently, I am mapping in Buffalo and Pepin counties, which are the northwestern extent of the Driftless area.
Okay.
So that's the northwestern tip. The Mississippi River really defines the western boundary of the Driftless area, and then it extends from Buffalo, Pepin County. It extends on a easterly line down through um, Jackson, down through Monroe is part of it, a little sliver of Juneau County, and all the way down to right in the Baraboo Hills area. So Devil's Lake is right at the boundary of the Driftless area. And then
Okay.
from there, the limit extends going down to the southwest through Greene County and then into Joe Daviess County, Illinois, which is the northwesternmost county in the state of Illinois. And that's the Driftless area. That
Okay.
southwestern part of Wisconsin and that little snibble in northwestern Illinois.
It must grab some of Minnesota too, huh?
No, it actually doesn't.
Oh, really? The
There's a
Mississippi cuts that
there,
off?
there's a probably the Mississippi post dates some of the glaciations. Probably where the Mississippi is because of some of the very early glaciations. One of the huge misconceptions out there about the Driftless area is that there's big areas of Minnesota and Iowa that are part of it. And if you're talking about the Driftless area based on the geologic definition of the area that was never covered by glaciers, there's literally nothing in Minnesota or Iowa that's part of the Driftless
Oh.
area.
So if a business in La Crescent, Minnesota, which is right over the river from La Crosse, named itself like the Driftless Coffee Shop, you would scoff at that, right?
Oh, I'd laugh right in the face. No,
All
but
right. So,
it is an education moment, and you know, part of it is the fact that there, like you mentioned, there's a lot of cachet to the moniker Driftless, and so you know, a lot of people went in on it. There's that sort of outdoorsy connotation, that ecotourism kind of thing going on. So a lot of people went in on it. You'll see a lot of maps of the Driftless area that show big areas of Minnesota and Iowa is part of it. And what I always say is, yeah, there's this larger collective, this larger um, uh, sense of being that is the Driftless area that includes areas in Minnesota and Iowa. But if you want to say the Driftless area is that place that was never covered by glaciers, it's Southwest Wisconsin. It's part of Joe Daviess County, Illinois, and that's it.
yeah. Eric Carson, Dr. Eric Carson is a UW-Madison geologist who's been mapping the Driftless for the past 18 years. He's got what's called a Badger Talk on Thursday night, 5:30 p.m. at the Sparta Library, if you want to check it out. Could you just real quick, and we'll do this the next segment in a little bit more depth, Eric. But what's the? Can you kind of give us an overview of what the talk will look like? Is there audience participation? You've probably had a couple of these already.
Oh yeah, you know, giving talks like this is it's basically the teaching component of my job as a professor at the UW, giving public education talks. So it's something I enjoy. I like the interaction with the people that show up for these. I like knowing that the people that are there because they're interested in the subject. So it
Yeah, right.
makes for a good environment. The way I do these talks is it'll be based off of a PowerPoint presentation, but I really encourage people to speak up with questions when they have them. The joke I always make with this is I know from my years actually teaching at a college that I apparently like the sound of my voice because I can talk for a long time if you lead me to it. But I'd rather do these as something, back and forth with people asking questions as we go along. I know the information well enough that I'm not giving a canned talk. I'm just kind of going spur of the moment with what I'm saying. So it makes itself pretty easy to that. So what I'll be talking about is I'll start with what we just talked about, this definition of the driftless area, because just 3 years ago, some of my colleagues and I had to put out a brand new publication uh, defining what the driftless area is from a geologic standpoint. So we'll cover that. We'll talk about the mapping program that I've had. So I've mapped county by county, every county from um, Lafayette and Grant County down on the Illinois state line, all the way up through. We just completed Trempealeau County, and we're working in Buffalo and Pepin right now. So we've mapped all of those, and I'll be showing off images of some of the maps. And then I'll fold in some of the research that I do as part of my professor position that kind of dovetails with the geologic mapping that we do.
Do you have a show and tell portion, being that you're mapping sediment and whatnot?
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
like maybe
we'll
you
show
found
it.
a dinosaur bone or something.
We'll show not dinosaur bones. We have found some mastodon bones out there in some places. Yeah, we'll show sort of photographs from the driftless area, showing off some of the things that we're depicting in the map, so people get an idea of, oh, hey, this is what this means when we see this on the map.
Yeah, for sure. Dr. Eric Carson, mapping the driftless. We got to take a break, though. You're listening to the Rick Solom Show here on WIZM 92.3 FM, 106.7 FM. We'll be back in a minute. All right, welcome back to the Rick Solom Show here on WIZM 92.3 FM, 106.7 FM if you're north of Alaska. Eric Carson, Dr. Eric Carson's a UW-Madison geologist. He's been mapping the driftless for the past 18 years. He's got what's called a Badger Talk at the Sparta Library Thursday at 5:30 p.m. If anyone wants to go check it out. We're kind of previewing that a little bit, but first things first is, as you kind of defined over the break or before the break, the driftless. Is lacrosse like a big portion of lacrosse in the driftless, or just a section, or did we get cut off?
The way I have looked at it is I know that there are glacial sediments across the Mississippi River in Minnesota and Iowa. The geologists at the State Geological Surveys there have mapped those areas and found glacial sediment. When I've mapped my way up along the Mississippi River from Grant and Crawford and Vernon and up into La Crosse County, I've looked very, very carefully for glacial sediment, evidence that there was any glaciation on this side of the river, and haven't found it. So what I just tell people is the Mississippi River today is basically the edge of the driftless area. So La Crosse is just
Okay.
in it by a hair. It wins. It's driftless.
Now I'm gonna just keep saying that you've been doing this for 18 years, but in my head, you're kind of wandering the bluffs. You got like a leather bound notebook, and you're mapping the driftless, right? But what does it actually mean to map the driftless? Like
Yeah,
what?
so a lot of what we do is um, computer based. So we use computer based mapping, geographic information systems, or GIS is what it's called. That's where we do our mapping. Um, a big component of it that we use is the modern topographic information that we have, which is a laser system called LiDAR. So airplanes go overhead, shoot lasers down, and measure the two-way travel time. And from that, they get a ridiculously accurate view of the topography of the landscape and show the shape of the land incredibly clearly. So we use that a lot. We do the horse with no name version of it. There's nothing that can beat seeing the landscape with your own eyes. And so the joke we always make is that once you map a county, you've probably driven every county road in it multiple times to be looking at the landscape. And then the last thing that we do that's field based is we collect sediment cores. So we do a lot of sediment core collection, so we can verify that what's going on down at depth from the surface down to the bedrock is actually what we think is going on. And so typically for a county, we'll collect somewhere between 3 and 6 or 7 dozen sediment cores. to
Okay.
verify the mapping that we're doing.
Oh, I had a UW Minnesota or University of Minnesota professor on who's doing cores in the Antarctic or the Arctic, the one south. Antarctica. There it is.
And
It's been a while since I thought of this. But yeah, they would send cores down like a mile or miles
oh
and
yeah,
pull out these ice cores out. I don't know if you've ever seen it yet. His
I
name
have
is Icy
indeed seen
Pete
those.
on Instagram or TikTok. Icy Pete.
Yep.
Uh, you're not doing that though, huh? You're not
No,
going
no,
miles.
this is more humble.
Yeah.
This is more Midwest focused.
And my friend lives in Oklahoma City. For a while, he was what's called a landman. And if anyone's ever watched the Sylvester Stallone show, Landman, I don't think he was doing it in that way, but he would have to go to like county registers and figure out who not owned the land on the top, but the sediments below to know who would have like oil reserves underneath, right? Who owned the land underneath so they could go, pull the oil out of there. But you're not doing anything in regards to going like I would say like you're not going very deep into
No, no. Across the Driftless area, most of the landscape, the amount of sediment cover on the surface is maybe we'll say 20 to 50 feet. If you get into some of the river valleys, it may go as deep as 150, 170 feet. But that's about the maximum. So we drill from the ground surface through unconsolidated loose sediment until we hit the bedrock surface that's buried. And so
Okay.
those are the numbers we have
So
for getting down to those depths.
I mean, you're not Antarctica and miles deep into ice cores, but you're going pretty deep. I mean, that's pretty deep.
The big ones are it's a bit of an event for us to put in some of these big cores. I put in two of them last month up in Buffalo and Trempealeau County, and yeah, it's a bit of a to do. It's not Antarctica, but it's not an everyday thing for us.
Okay, so I guess the real question is not only how you're doing that, but like what is the point of doing it? Like, why do we need to map the driftless? Is it like we need to know if we can build housing on or businesses on this because maybe the ground isn't like sturdy enough, or I guess yeah, you tell me. I shouldn't even make
That is absolutely correct. These are beneficial for land management and land use in the counties. We say that the Geological Survey is our mission is to create data and information that's valuable to the people of Wisconsin, and that's what these maps are. They help understand flood susceptibility. They help understand suitability for siting things like landfills and new roads, and if there's permits for confined animal feed operations, our information feeds into those county managers. The DOT uses our maps every time they're placing a new road. So these get out. They get used by land management groups at scales ranging from towns and villages all the way up to the state and federal government.
Uh, has your job gotten easier over the last, I don't know, pick a couple of years because of technology? Like, did you start this in 2008 with a notebook and a leather bound, or a laptop, and maybe it's gotten a lot easier as 20 years. Technology changes a lot.
I was actually the sort of the new wave of the future showing up when I did in 2008. So I talked about how I do my mapping in this GIS environment, do everything on computer. And my original maps from the Driftless area were the first surficial geologic maps done at the State Geological Survey that were computer based from start to finish. So I brought sort of the new methodologies to our research group. I was also the one that sort of came across the specific type of coring that we do. I was the first one to use the specific core rig that we use. And so, I kind of brought that into the fold. What's been sort of
Well, I would say, Eric, is in other words, all the old guys that have been doing this for a while just roll their eyes at you because you're using the computer and they were out there in the field, right? Like
oh, absolutely, absolutely. You can go back and read the accounts of some of the geologists from the 1920s and 10s that literally would take the train as far north as it would go, and then they'd get off the train with their bicycle and start doing their geology.
not the worst job, but man, that would be grueling.
No, and literally one of the things that got me into geology was the concept that it's a job that I get to do outside when I want to and when I need to. So
Now, when you say your work finishes in 2 years, Does your work really finish in 2 years, or is there something planned like beyond that? And and I probably should just let you answer, but or otherwise I'll forget this question. As you're doing your work, like you do Juneau County or something like that, like that's done, and then people can assess that and go and take that information and do what they will with it. And then right as you complete a county or an area, they can use it. You don't have to finish this, and so like we don't have to wait for the completed product.
No, no, we don't. And by the way, it sounds spookily like you've, prepped for this talk by talking to my boss. So Eric, what are you going to do in 2 years?
Yeah.
um, yeah. So we publish these maps on a county by county basis, and one of the things about it is I mapped the whole driftless area thinking holistically. So it used to be that our geologist would go in, map a county, map it, move somewhere else in the state, and map that county. I mapped the whole driftless area myself, so I was figuring out the geology of the whole area at a time. And so the pace of it has increased as I've come to understand the driftless area more. And we're now in the phase that we're going through the process of publishing these maps individually. So just last October, we published Crawford, Richland, Vernon were the three that were published first. We're about to publish Grant, Iowa, Lafayette. We're about to publish Monroe and La Crosse. So we've got these that are coming out the door, and when they're published, they're publicly available. They're available for free on our website for free as downloads, and all of them have the county map, and they have a report that goes with them that helps explain the geology and show some of these pictures and diagrams and everything that I'll be showing at the Badger talk. So when you look at the map, you actually have sort of the cliff notes of my talk that I'll be giving Thursday in your hand with you.
Any big revelations that have come as you map this thing? I don't even know what those would be. I can't even throw an example at you.
Yeah, so like I said, the one of the things that I do because of my position as a professor at the university is I dovetail research with the geologic mapping. So sometimes there's weird features of the landscape that people haven't understood, and so we start a research project to try to understand them, and understanding them invariably leads back to a better geologic map that we're making. Probably the most sort of unexpected and revelatory thing that we found is that it's down south from where you all are, but the Wisconsin River, the lower Wisconsin River that cuts across the driftless area from the Baraboo Hills down to Prairie du Chien. So that flows west today to where it joins the Mississippi, but we were able to document that the valley itself was carved back millions of years ago by a river that flowed east and flowed up into Green Bay and up into what is now the Great Lakes, and then all the way up to Montreal and out to sea at the Gulf of St. Lawrence.
Okay.
So the valley was carved by this east flowing river. The cycle of glaciers caused the river to reverse course, or causes
I
what
was
we
going to
call it.
say it. That river was defying. I don't know if it's gravity, but it was odd, right? That's odd.
No, it was flowing downhill. I mean,
Oh, it was okay.
it's just we think of, because we live in the southern half of our continent, we think of rivers always flowing south. I think is part of the thing.
Yeah, that's what I was
Um,
thinking.
yeah, yeah. It's just because we live in the southern half of North American continent.
Okay.
Yeah. So the glaciers blocked it up and basically created the Upper Mississippi River relatively recently in geologic time. So we're still talking several million years back, but completely reorganized the patterns of rivers across the upper Midwest.
How unique is the Driftless? Are there the Driftless elsewhere in the U.S. or I'm sure there are in the world, but are we really unique?
There is nothing close to the scale of the driftless area anywhere else on the planet.
Oh, okay, that's pretty big.
So
That's pretty
yeah,
unique.
it is definitively unique.
Okay, and can you just reiterate why that is? I know we kind of talked about why it happens, but yeah, just for the audience now that's listening now in the car,
Yeah.
why
So
is it so unique? What happened or didn't happen? I suppose.
yeah. So there, over the past 2.5 million years, there have been numerous cycles of these glaciers expanding and contracting. And for a variety of reasons, none of them, maybe six, maybe eight, maybe 10 of them, none of them ever flowed over the driftless area. And some of them it was quirk of geography and climate. Some of it was the area was protected by ice getting funneled down the Green Bay lowland and the Lake Michigan lowland. And some of it was that the landscape was protected by the huge deep trough of Lake Superior that was preventing ice from going too much farther south than that.
Must have been some kind of like crater. The moon must have cratered Superior, and or an
It,
alien
it
ship
it's
landed
the
there and then took off.
Lake Superior is a spot where back something we're talking a billion with a B, since
Yeah,
we know people that like bees. Um, Something about along a billion years ago, the North American continent tried to rip apart, split in two, and that's called a rift. And in the case of North America, it started to rift apart and stopped, and that big deep gash where it was starting to tear apart has become Lake Superior. And that's actually why Lake Superior is so much deeper than any of the other Great Lakes, because it's sitting in this ancient suture where the continent tried to rip apart.
I like my idea where a spaceship landed there and made it deep, but yours probably
Yeah, I
sounds.
mean, yeah, that one's going to be a tough for us to set up a bona fide research project to try to verify or disprove.
So this is all pretty fascinating to me, and but when people think geology, they might not think of it as all that fascinating. But sell your profession here and your subject to people that want to go. They're graduating high school and they're thinking about a job. Well, man, if I could, I don't know, did you steal this job and nobody else can have a job like yours where you get to go for 20 years and wander around all the counties and map the driftless? Like, is this a very unique job, or is this something that people can get into and do in a different way in a different area?
It's a great field to get into. I got into it because it's a job where you get to get outdoors, you get to travel a lot. My job has confined me to Wisconsin more or less for the last 18 years, but I've traveled a lot for geology. It is a job that, yeah, if you like long-term security, working at state geological surveys and the federal geological survey, there is a lot of stability in it because the projects are long-term. So there generally doesn't need to be you don't want a lot of turnover of staff. But the big one, the really important one is that as we look ahead in the coming years, the society, the American society is looking at a massive shortfall in geologists. We need geologists in a lot of ways that people don't realize, from mineral exploration, from petroleum exploration, for understanding groundwater resources, groundwater contamination, the work that I do. Geologists touch a lot of the society we have, and the country isn't producing enough geologists.
All
The
right.
some of the professional agencies estimate that in 10 years from now, the US is going to be facing a shortage of something on the order of 29,000 trained geologists.
Okay,
So
sounds like a good field to get in.
The
My friend went
big
to college.
catch is jobs.
Yeah, my friend went to college in GIS, and that
Yeah,
just seems like that would be a part of you could be a geologist, but also maybe get a GIS degree, right? Something like that.
absolutely. And our office, our geological survey, we have 3 or 4 GIS specialists who work for us, and they're basically the ones that take my understanding of geology and really translate it into the maps. They do the magic of actually making the maps from the geology that I see.
Cool. All right, Dr. Eric Carson, UW-Madison geologist. He's mapping the driftless. He's been doing that for 18 years. He's got 2 more years left, he says, and he's going to have a Badger Talk in Sparta, 5:30 p.m. at the library on Thursday night. Anything else that we need to know heading into
No,
that, or
no.
just in general?
Come with questions on Thursday. What you'll find is that geology is the most storytelling of all the sciences out there, and I like telling stories when I get the chance to talk.
All right, Eric. Thanks so much for joining us.